He had been born of an incestuous union. His parents were either siblings or parent and child.
Ah, no. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. Hello and welcome back to ArchaeoScoop. I'm joined as ever by the marvelous Michelle Franklin. Hello, Michelle.
So I had a little surprise from Mark,
Uh
and I
huh.
didn't tell him what it was. And so today, as we are recording, is the 24th of June. And Mark, what is the 24th of June?
Uh,
Besides the 24th of June.
is it St. John's Day?
Yes, it is St. John's Day. And so many regions in the area do celebrate St. John's
Someone
Day.
has
It
seen
is.
TikTok. Yeah.
In many regions, June 24th is St. John's Day. Well, it's a good thing my channel edifies somebody. So, the interesting thing, there are many interesting things about St. John's
Hmm.
Day. And the thing, though, that is uh, interesting but not true is that it's a pagan holiday. And
Ah.
so, the first surprise that I wanted to share with you is an article from The Guardian. And it says, and I quote, celebrating an everlasting twilight, midsummer Lithuanian style. And it says that the Baltic nations' midsummer celebrations are rooted in pagan traditions and fire and fertility. And that is absolutely not true. St. John's
Um,
was invented in the fourth century. And when did Lithuania become pagan? Or rather, when did they leave paganism?
oh, I don't know actually.
Technically they are the last European nation to leave
Ah,
paganism.
okay,
And so
okay.
it's a wonderful story of how they clung to their what we now today term paganism
Yes.
for really up until the late 1300s,
Hmm.
and really not because they fought anybody, not because it's just because nobody spoke Lithuanian, which was a Grand Duchy at the time,
Uh-huh.
and people were just like, I don't want to convert it, and they're just not interested.
Hmm.
And the article goes on to state that, oh, the fires were a pagan ritual. But as we said, St. John's was invented in the fourth century and had been going on for literally almost 1,000 years before Lithuania
Yeah.
had become Christian.
Yeah.
And even then, there's a lot of questions as to some of their rituals and things. What is actually a pagan survival for them? What were they only one pagan culture, etc. So no, the St. John's Day has nothing to do with paganism, never has at all, and to the point that even neo-pagans don't celebrate it today. That's it.
Gutted. Absolutely gutted. Oh well.
Thanks, Guardian, for that
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And as I said, even Dr. Francis Young, who is a specialist on the subject, he called out the Guardian for writing this, saying, "You could have just asked me, guys." He has so many books on this subject, But
J-
again,
j-
there's
j-
the whole there's the
journalists
whole there's the
asking
whole idea.
experts.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, there's the whole idea of that, oh, if you see a Catholic ritual, it must be pagan, when we know 99.999% of the time that's not true at all. It's just
No.
that Catholicism is deeply, deeply ritualistic, and so some things look pagan. Just ask the Protestants.
Uh-huh.
And fires on St. John's Eve have nothing to do with ancient practices.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I technically am sharing the first story of the week this week.
That's right.
And this week I want to begin with the story of, and I'm going to deliberately swap, swope, uh, the story order that I'm doing. So I'm going to go with the second one first. And this is from IFL Science. Massive urns containing human and turtle remains found buried in the Amazon. It's unclear if the relics
How big
belong.
were her urns, Mark? But no.
Hey! It's unclear if the relics belong to any known culture. So, when a tree fell, says the article, in the remote region of the Brazilian Amazon, local villagers noticed something big and very strange lurking beneath its exposed roots. A team of archaeologists arrived shortly afterwards. I like the idea that they come in on a helicopter. You know, they sort of like, and on the way in, they're listening to like, good old fashioned rock blues music type thing,
Of course.
spitting tobacco, that kind of thing. This
That will erase the image of me like thinking of two urns popping out of the ground.
oh, yeah, well, yes, yes. Well, I see. Yes, a tree trunk, two urns, solid. Um, yes, but I'm just thinking of like this trowel will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaur.
This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus. Just like me.
Um, anyway, bamboo. Uh, head injury. If anyone's wondering, you can put it down to the lingering head injury. Anyway, these buried objects were of ancient. They were ancient funerary urns containing pre-Hispanic human and animal skeletons. A total of 7 urns were found, 2 of which are described as large, although it's currently unclear which ancient Amazonian culture they represent or how long ago they were interred. They are, quote, large in volume and lack ceramic lids, which could suggest that they were sealed with organic materials. Like a waxed skin, perhaps, that kind of thing, and they've since decomposed. Explained archaeologist Georgia Leila Hollanda from the Mamiroyo Institute. I really need to get better. Do you know, it always annoys me, folks at home, and I'm sure you might be annoyed by this, when people don't bother just to Google a word and find some sort of concept of how it's pronounced. And I need to get better at doing that for these, because it always annoys me. Anyway, so she's from that institute anyway. They were buried 40 centimetres, that's roughly 16 inches deep, probably beneath old houses. She suggested in a statement, and there's a fantastic picture of her excavating, and she's using a brush. She's using a brush. Now, the reason why I say that is because so many stereotypical archaeological excavations in Hollywood, etc., will have someone using a brush. We very rarely use brushes, except in very particular circumstances, and this is one of them.
What do you mean Jurassic Park lied to me?
No, they didn't. But do you know who was doing the digging of dinosaurs?
Paleontologist.
Paleontologist, precisely.
Cue Marc's song, We Don't Dig Dinosaurs.
But we don't do dinosaurs. No, we don't do dinosaurs.
And that's going to be on your suggested playlist for the rest of the week on loop.
Don't dig dinosaurs.
We don't do dinosaurs. Yeah. Upon opening the urns, the researchers discovered human bones as well as the remains of fish and turtles, all of which may relate to funerary customs and rituals. Oh, well, that's a fair guess. That's a fair guess. Ritual. Do we need to have like a ritual alarm that comes up?
It's ritual.
As well as dietary practices. Initial analysis also revealed that the vessels were made using a range of ceramic techniques, hinting at a long-lost multicultural society that has until now gone unnoticed in the archaeological record. For instance, the researchers were surprised to discover the use of green clay that has previously been identified at a small number of other sites within the forest Medeo-Solimoes region. Despite this, it's still unclear if the urns were directly related to any known pre-Columbian ceramic tradition, such as the so-called Amazonian polychrome. Located in the municipality of Fonteboa, the relics were discovered at the Cochilla Lake archaeological site, where a series of artificial islands were constructed by native communities centuries or perhaps millennia ago. These artificial islands are raised archaeological structures on high floodplains with material removed from other areas and mixed with ceramic fragments, intentionally positioned to give support, said researcher Marceo Amaral. It's a very sophisticated indigenous engineering technique which demonstrates significant land management and population density in the past. Finally, the urns, which were excavated with the help of locals from the village, were transported on river canoes to a laboratory in Tefe, where they are currently undergoing further analysis in hopes of learning more about the mysterious ancient cultures that once inhabited that corner of the Amazon. So this is proper, old school, deep, dark jungle archaeological stuff, and genuine, fresh discovery. You know, we don't know who made it. But do you know what that means? Well, what that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean it was aliens. It doesn't mean it was aliens.
Alien.
Aliens. Do you know have a less well-known song about aliens? I could put that in here as well.
No, we don't do aliens, xenomorphs or UFOs. Read a book and you will know it's people who float our boat.
So this one might be no, it's definitely not aliens.
Yeah.
But this discovery has been all over the place for a very different and unfortunate reason. So the Lord's Prayer, carved in stone with Scandinavian ruins, and a picture of a boat discovered in Ontario, Canada.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I picked this.
Yeah.
I had something else, but I picked this because what many of the headlines said: baffled, archaeologists baffled. And of course, Marc is now going to put his baffled song right here.
I'm baffled. Baffled. Baffled.
All the songs, yes.
All the songs
All the
today, all the
songs.
Archaeosoup songs, because obviously, whenever it says, as our the lovely Annalise Baer said, whenever it says baffled, it's not the archaeologists who are baffled; it's the journalists who are baffled.
Yeah.
So we know exactly where this came from and who made it. Hidden in the deep Ontario wilderness, an extraordinary archaeological discovery has puzzled researchers. No, it hasn't, and captured the imagination of history enthusiasts. A fallen tree near the town of Wawa uncovered a mysterious rock carving that's now been identified as the longest runic inscription in North America, and the only one known worldwide to contain the full Lord's Prayer. Roughly 7 years ago, a fallen tree exposed a remarkable carving etched into the bedrock. 255 runic symbols arranged in a rectangular shape, measuring about 1.2 by 1.5 meters. Accompanying the runes was a detailed depiction of a boat carrying 16 figures, along with 14 X marks carved beside it. Photos reached Ryan Primrose, president, and David Gadzala, vice president of the Ontario Centre for Archaeological Education. Following the discovery, Primrose and Gadzala initiated a systematic study of the site, marking the beginning of their multi-year research effort. In an interview with CBC, Primrose shared his astonishment. Certainly among the least expected discoveries of my career, it's absolutely fascinating. But as we all know, there is another story, which is that the carvings are from probably the 1800s. And of course, everybody on Facebook who has seen this immediately thinks it's proof of Vikings in the 1800s in Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
do you know what you should say to them?
What?
Wah, wah. Oh, yeah.
Oh God, the head injury, Marc. So the thing is that this is probably they're not sure, but this is probably just like the Kensington runestone and a bunch of other fakes that were made. But there's some people who think that. So Dr. Williams concluded that the runes represented a Swedish language version of the Lord's Prayer, so not Old Norse, carved using a variation of the runic system developed by Johannes Bruedus, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, in the early 1600s. The wording closely matches the version of the prayer that was widely used in Sweden beginning in the 16th century.
Yeah.
So this is at least 1700s, if not older. And so they believed that this has believed to be at least believed to have been carved in the early 1800s and later buried. So this is probably somebody who came to work here from Sweden and decided to play a little prank. And also these kinds of runic hoaxes were very popular in the States, especially in areas that were populated by people from Scandinavia. And there's plenty of them. The Kensington runestone, I think, is the most famous one, where people point to it and they go, "Aha! You see, Vikings were here." And they were, but they were in Long Meadows, and they were there for only about 8 years, and that was many, many hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
The Vikings were not here in the 16 to 1800s. It's not possible.
Do we have any understanding as to why it is? And I'm not asking why it is that people in the 1800s might play pranks, but why it is that people get so excited at the prospect of Viking settlers coming into what is now the United States or further into Canada, what does this do to people who absolutely are not related to those people? What does this do
I
for
think
them?
the problem is twofold. So number one, in Canada, we don't really care about this kind of thing because
Mm,
we're very aware that the Vikings were here. We know
mm,
about it. We have the archaeological site at Lost Meadows, which Mark
mm,
will put on screen. And so we know it was there. We dug it up. It's now a World Heritage Site.
hmm.
And the thing is that it's very unremarkable. If you see the site at Lost Meadows, yeah, it's a nice site. But it's very small.
Yeah.
There's the one large house, the three small houses, I think, and then there were a couple of pits. The going theory is that it was used as a boat or some kind of fixing station
Yeah. Staging post.
or a
Yeah.
rest station. It was
Mm,
never a settlement, as again, as we in Canada pretty well know. It was never a settlement. We don't know if they tried to do trade here, but whatever it is, the ore that was found in that deposit was so poor that it's theorized that maybe they tried. This was like a test,
mm.
and they tried, and the ore was so bad that they're like, oh man, this place sucks, and they just went home. And that was it. There's also theories that maybe they clashed with the native peoples who were
Mm.
here, as some of the sagas say as well. There are some ideas that they went a little bit farther south to collect certain goods because there are those things down there.
Hmm.
But whether there's another settlement that went further south, we don't have any evidence of that at the moment. So
Yeah. So,
there are efforts
mm,
to do that. But so to answer the second half of your question, which is what does this mean for the States? Well, I know that being somebody who was educated in the American school system, unfortunately, they still try to hammer home that idea that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
right. Yes.
And that is nonsense that was made up in the 1930s. He didn't
Mm,
discover anything. He knew that the states were there. Obviously, we're called that, son. He knew that the land was there, and he's one of the people who are responsible for setting up the East India slave trade.
mm,
And his expedition though is looked on as, obviously he was not the first person here, but we're talking about European settlers.
mm.
Very obviously the natives have been here forever, but they if you talk about everybody else who showed up, so there were Basque people who showed up for whaling and oil. There were plenty of other traders who were here at the
Hmm.
time, but he decided he was the big one for the States, and so people decided, okay, well, we're going to make Columbus Day a holiday, and we are going to teach children why Columbus Day is a holiday. And so they kind of instituted this little white lie
Mm.
about him discovering things. And yes, and
Emphasis on white.
okay, that was not an
Ba-dum.
intentional pun, but very good.
Thank you.
So this is just how it is. And
Mm.
so I think because that story is now being dismantled,
Mm.
I think people in the States are desperate to have, because there are people who don't know that the Vikings were in North America. They have
Right.
no
Yeah.
idea. And
So it
and that
becomes a
they
very
were here,
exciting alternative possibility.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that they were here so much earlier than Columbus,
Mm.
hundreds of years. So they around the year 1000.
Mm.
So people think, this is really interesting. So the Vikings were here, and therefore it gives them some kind of claim to certain aspects of the land. But as we said, the Vikings were here for maybe 8 years, and then they left. So
Yeah.
we have no further evidence of a settlement or anything like that in North
Mm.
America.
Mm. Okay. When you said the Basque came for whaling and oil, I didn't hear whaling. I heard whoa,
They did, yeah. So I mean, in Canada,
and then oil.
yeah, Canadian history is very different than American history, and there are lots of people who were here, who showed up for trading. Lots of people who showed up near Labrador, Newfoundland.
Fur trappers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Hudson Bay Company. It was a little bit later, but yeah, anyway. So that's that. The runic symbols are not a mystery. We know where they came from. We know they're quite modern, and that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. And you're not sad that you've just ruined someone's day.
All right, Mark, what's your next story?
Okay.
What's your next? Just let's please.
My next story is this is actually from the Irish Independent, and the headline is doubt has been cast over suggestions that incestuous god kings ruled Newgrange during Neolithic Ireland.
Where did they get the incestuous bit from?
Well, there was a piece of research I seem to recall a couple of years ago that suggested that, I think, off the top of my head, a female skeleton had DNA tested and compared with other people in the tomb, and was shown to be alarmingly connected, interrelated, and that led to some headlines about incestuous kings and being very selective about who goes in the tomb. However, new research has cast doubt on suggestions that this incestuous social elite ruled over the people who built Newgrange 5,000 years ago.
Marc is just going to take my face and plaster it over, like it's going to make stupid YouTube thumbnail face. I hear.
Yeah, I don't like it. So this paper has been written by researchers at the University College Dublin, has questioned the belief that the burial within the mega passage tomb of Newgrange was the preserve of kings and other dignitaries who represented a dynasty that practiced incest. Such claims followed a study in 2020, there you go, that suggested evidence of incestuous unions at the site. Oh, even more. Ugh. Okay. Oh no.
Like
what?
in the tomb.
Well, that's what the sentence implies. Although, to be fair, they're probably saying the evidence is at the site.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually saying here is the bed, here's the church, here's the steeple. You know, open all the doors, out come all the people.
Here's the tripod, here's the camera.
Yeah.
Here's the director. So awful.
Yeah. Now for the bronze shot. A study of the. Oh, that's so wrong. I'm so sorry, Michelle. A study of the DNA of an adult male buried there revealed he had been born of an incestuous union. His parents were either siblings or parent and child.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. The finding led the research team at the time, headed by Trinity College Dublin, to speculate that the elite associated with the monument practiced incest as a way of maintaining a dynastic bloodline. And I'll come back to that. Notion.
You're not allowed to pick stories anymore, Marc.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Just ignore the incest man. That's so shocking. Oh, what horrible! That's second only to that poor fellow in Pompeii, who was stuck.
Who was cranking one out.
Well,
what was he really though? No,
I don't think.
But we like to think so.
But it's an unfortunate position, yeah. So this this implied he was among a social ruling elite akin to the similarly inbred Inca god kings or the Egyptian pharaohs. But now, in findings published in the journal Antiquity, researchers say that the ancient genome of the adult male revealed a rare case of incest, which led to claims in 2020 that the individual was a high-status ruler, with press coverage dubbing him the God King.
Oh,
Associated professors Jessica Smith and Neil Carlin at UCD School of Archaeology point out that no other incestuous unions have been identified in Neolithic Ireland and Britain, and say that there is a lack of evidence for inbreeding across prehistoric Europe. They also say the evidence found at the site does not support the existence of a king. And actually, king is an interesting word to use. It implies an awful lot of other structures and socio-cultural and economic possibilities.
Yeah.
Of Newgrange, or any hereditary power or dynasty with a shared ancestry. People were definitely being selected for burial in the passage tombs, of course, and the whole community does not end up, therefore, in these monuments. However, we don't know the reasons behind the selection, Professor Smith/Smythe said. Unlike today, bodies don't tend to be buried whole or intact in this time period. Before they end up in the megalithic monuments, bodies are broken down, sometimes cremated, and even circulated around their communities. I very nearly read that as circumcised.
Well, that's before.
Yeah. Circulated around their communities. And actually, this is interesting. What I often point out in primary school prehistory workshops is that children.
Or do you tell them about the
I don't tell them about the incest. Any brothers and sisters here? Yeah, no. I do not do that. No, no,
no.
no, we do not do that. There's a little bit of cannibalism in the workshop. But that's it. But no, one of the things that I do point out is that this especially in the Neolithic, this relationship with the dead and having bits of bodies and bones floating around the community probably meant that kids weren't scared of skeletons in that sense. So especially around Halloween, I'll sort of say, so if I was just teleport you into a graveyard right now, and it was the middle of the night, and you heard an owl go woo, 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 or something, and someone said ooh, what would you think? And all the guys are like, I wouldn't be scared. I wouldn't be scared at all. I'd be fine. I'd punch someone, that kind of thing. But realistically, everyone would be quite. I'd be quite unnerved if I just appeared in a graveyard, and yet these people weren't clearly. They were very accustomed to handling the dead and living with the dead in that sense. Professors Smythe and Carlin argue that these conclusions relied heavily on unsuitable comparisons with hierarchical societies where incest was limited to ruling families. Okay, that sounds so bad. It sounds like people going, oh, please, can we do incest? And the ruling family's like, no. No, we do the incest here.
For your sister and your brother, not for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cue something from Game of Thrones for sure.
Such as in ancient Egypt, while ignoring examples of incest in non-elite or egalitarian communities. Okay, a one-off example of incest is a shaky foundation on which to reconstruct an elite, let alone a specific social hierarchy. The authors said Newgrange is believed to have been built by a farming community that prospered in the Boyne Valley, County Meath, about 5,000 years ago. It is far more likely, they argue, that rather than being reserved for elite rulers or a ruling dynasty, the tombs at Newgrange were places where people made their kin through a range of practices, including living, working, and burying their dead together, which is a really interesting concept in so much as it's been argued in the Iron Age, obviously completely different time period, and also in the south of England, so a completely different place, that hill forts could have acted as artificial boundaries for community focus and gathering. So, for example, you don't find hill forts in valleys because a valley quite happily defines a community, whereas in a great big flat area, having a sort of a focal point is very useful. So I like that idea that perhaps by working your way into a community and therefore having some of your kin group in the tomb, you sort of gain status or prominence, or just being, you're one of the people who are okay to that group. That sounds, frankly, much more wholesome and sustainable than just having a whole load of people.
Genetically sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, than just hello.
Well, I have a better story from Ireland.
This is my sister and my wife. Yeah. Okay.
First intact Roman pot found in Ireland.
Yay. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
This is from Archaeology magazine from Dromana, Ireland. Last year, Irish archaeologists working at a fort on the Dromana promontory north of Dublin discovered a 2,000-year-old charred fig. The oldest evidence of exotic Mediterranean fruit ever found in Ireland.
Okay.
Before this, there were only apples. RTE reports that they recently made another remarkable discovery, an intact Roman pot. Although the Roman Empire's boundaries enveloped much of Europe, they never reached Ireland, for those who did not know. That did not mean, however, that Roman influence and goods did not land on the Emerald Isle. Previous archaeological work at Dromana has demonstrated that although there was not a settlement located there, people with a Roman background or with Roman trading contacts frequented the site. Excavated artifacts include glass beads, gaming pieces, and a bone comb. But the intact Roman vessel was the first of its kind ever recovered in Ireland. We're breathless with the sheer excitement of it all, said archaeologist Christine Baker. We have found 5 or 6 different types of Roman artifacts here, including the neck of an amphora, but nobody has ever seen a pot like this before in Ireland.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's interesting, isn't it, that I mean, obviously, this is a fantastic find, and it speaks of trade, it speaks of interconnectivity, and people moving, and goods moving. But it's always fascinated me coming from Wales and then going into, broadly speaking, the English higher education system, that so many of my fellow archaeologists, both before and after I graduated, and also so many of the people who relish and immerse themselves in notions of the Roman Empire, especially here on Hadrian's Wall, they all say, well, we just haven't found the fort yet. We just haven't found where the Romans inevitably invaded Ireland. And I think that says much more about Victorian and post-Victorian English ideas of empire and what it means to be an imperial force on this island, not these islands, than it does about what the Romans actually did. So this is fantastic, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if there are a few people who are getting a bit too excited about this for the wrong reasons. Out there.
Yeah, well.
There's a fantastic quote actually on this story on RTE's website, where Ms. Baker says, "You get very little Roman material in Ireland," and of course I was thinking about mini pots. Get these very little pots, they're tiny, and they come over here. And from previous digs, she says, we have evidence that there were people of Roman background here, and maybe a few people overseeing trade, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. One other thing, not to take over your story here, but one other thing that strikes me as interesting here is that before the Romans formally came to the southern shores of what would eventually become England, there's a lot of evidence of similar sorts of trade. So people on the south coast were panning for salt in seawater, and then trading salt south into Gaul, which ultimately was to go into the Roman economic system, and other materials, iron. There was lead, I think, coming from not too far from where I'm from in North Wales, that was making its way. So before Rome gets to you, the economy.
And Rome always gets to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Before the Romans get to you, before they roam that far, you actually end up with the economic bubble reaching you first, and it's no bad thing in that sense. People are able to make money, and for the most part, it doesn't involve an inevitable, conquering scenario. So yeah, cool, very cool story. Thank you.
It also doesn't mean that the Romans ever reached America or anywhere else where their coins have been found.
What, no. People say that?
It was really aliens, though.
I see. Yeah. Well,
the aliens picked up the Romans and they brought them to to where the Roman coins were found in the States.
Yeah, and the Romans are like, "Hey, ciao. Ciao bella." Anyway.
Would they have said that though, Mark?
No. I just love the idea of Caesar on a Vespa. That's the thing. The die has been cast. Ciao.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, people in northern Italy going, "Oh no, he's got his Vespa out. He means business." Yeah.
Everybody behind him on slightly faster Vespas with little tiny knives. Just
yes. Do you know that surrealist image combines in my sort of Roman view of the Roman world with people in Roman soldiers meeting lovely people, like in the borderlands around Hadrian's Wall, who are like weebles. So in my mind, there are these people speaking Brythonic who are very, very friendly, and they offer lovely cups of tea, and it's like, "Hello there, nice to meet you." And these Romans are like, "Quick, stab them!" But they keep getting back up against. Hello.
It's just what's his name, just going like just continuously stabbing over and over.
And then in my mind, this then jump cuts to Quintus and Varus going back to their unit and saying, "They wouldn't die. They just wouldn't die."
Or him in a corner like crying, going, "He just wouldn't stop."
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I love the idea that in the meantime, those lovely Brythonic speaking people are just like, oh, they were lovely. Shame they couldn't stay for longer.
Oh, I can imagine there's one of them who just go, didn't know anything about tea.
Yeah,
I mean, to be
exactly.
fair,
Yes, yeah.
was tea there at the time?
Oh, no.
Maybe herbal tonics.
Yeah.
Tea as we know it was not there.
No.
No.
So like a nettle tea, probably. That sort of thing. Yeah.
I've made you a nice tonic.
Yeah. That's a garnish. Don't. Oh no. Yeah. Oh. Anyway.
Romans are not civilized putting tea on things.
No. Ugh. Not wearing trousers.
Yeah, that's also very true. Yeah.
Yeah,
And not
yeah.
having mustaches.
Yeah.
So the
Despicable.
Romans said anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. And then along comes Cartimandua and Boudica. They have wonderful mustaches.
Yeah, especially Cartimandua.
Oh man, sorry folks, we've gone off on a surrealist Roman.
It's okay. Next time, I promise
Journey.
we'll do more Roman things.
Brilliant. I love the Romans. Okay, right.
Mark says that also because he knows I have no really specialty or interest in Roman anything.
Oh, do you
But-
not? At all? Okay, interesting.
Obviously, biggest dickus, yes, but other than that.
Yeah. Well, we all want to meet biggest dickus. Yes.
But we established last time though that you are the biggest dickus in all of us.
And that's only because I won't stop making puns.
Well, that's because you had the same shoe size as that
Yeah.
giant shoe that was found near Hadrian's wall.
Yeah, I can
Well,
prove
they
that.
said it was extremely large, and then they said, "Oh, it was 13." You said, "Oh, that's my size."
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I literally, I'll send you a photo, not of the shoe, of the shoe. Oh God! Right, okay, guys. Let's call it a day. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any interesting news stories you'd like us to take a look at, please do send them our way. Comment below. Continue the conversation. And of course, you can find Michelle and her ongoing exploits over at the Lectures and Legends YouTube channel, as always linked below. And as I said last time, you know where I am because you're watching me. Yeah. Right. Bye, guys.
Until then, do take care.
Bye-bye.